Hello, and welcome to the Homesteading Academy, where homesteaders come to learn. So I just want to say hello and welcome everybody in, and I want to talk a little bit about what the Homesteading Academy will be about. I am waiting for our guest, who is a very busy man, and he actually was leaving work and coming here. So if we can just give him a couple of minutes, he will be here. So hello to everybody in the chat. So this is a little different format from what we are used to on the YouTube community, in that we're not going to be posting any channel links. We really just want folks to sit back and relax. We're so happy that you're all here. I thank you so much. This is a very exciting project, and the goal of this is just to offer some educational resources to homesteaders, because one of the things that I found out was, well, doing the May Homesteading Challenge on Instagram, there were a lot of folks who came from backgrounds that were not that of an agricultural or farming or homesteading background. They were urban folks, and they were also trying to build a homestead or homestead where they're at. And we know homestead is a broad definition. So we're just looking to offer some skill sets. And so what we will be doing is offering a series of educational videos. They will either be live stream or they will be pre-recorded. For example, this is the first episode, and this is going to be a live, and then the replay will be there. Then we will also end up having the pre-recorded sessions where the guest speaker will be in the chat, able to answer some questions. So welcome in, everybody. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for being here. It means a lot to us. So I'm just giving Brian a chance to set up. And yes, I know I'm surrounded by bees. I see that. I wanted to do that on purpose because I really love that as a background. And all I ask is that you guys hold your question and answer. We'll do a Q&A session near the end. If you will please just hold your questions till the end. We want Brian to be able to give his information and lecture, so to speak, and then we'll take it from there. Hi, Rising Swine. Hi, Lazy Days Ahead, Berkshire Farm, everybody in the chat. Hello, hello. And I'm just waiting for a thumbs up to say that we're ready on Brian's end. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to Brian from Castle Hives, and he has a YouTube channel. I've pinned it to the top of the chat. I also put a little bit about Brian from his About page, and also a link to his channel in the description box of the video. So it's not like you have to remember everything tonight. So hello, everybody, and I'm going to bring Brian up. Welcome.
Howdy.
How are you?
How are you?
Doing well, thank you. What a beautiful location for a lecture.
Oh my gosh. I am in between Lake Tahoe and Sacramento.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here. I know this has been a lot for you.
Yeah, it's just the travel with work. It keeps me busy, so that and the bees.
Very true. Now, do the bees need care while you're away?
No, they are a perfect hobby that I can be gone for a week or 2 weeks sometimes, and they don't require me to be there. So,
Excellent.
yeah. I see Mel is on here. Bake a leg.
Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of new folks coming in, and a lot of people have said they're very excited about the bees and about this series. So we're real excited.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, take it away. It's all you, my friend.
Well, gosh. I guess, I'll start just a brief kind of history of how I got into beekeeping. I started, this is my 6th season. I got into it originally because my mom wanted to get into beekeeping. And this is just an FYI for those that are looking to get into it. They always say, don't ever start with one beehive, start with two. And when she was going to get one, I thought, well, I'll get one and start along with you. So I just started researching, getting into it. You know, the more that I started researching and researching, I got hooked, and, you know, I got a package of bees along with my mom at the same time. She doesn't have them anymore. You know, of course I do. But, you know, I've just continued along, and, you know, it's been an amazing, it's an amazing hobby. You know, I look at everything that they do it's more or less as a colony. You know, they have that colony mentality where, you know, even from the time when they emerge out of their cells, you know, they just go right to work, and it is, you know, and they have different, so to say, job duties when they emerge out. You know, right away they clean the cell that they came out of, and then they go to cleaning other cells, and they cycle through different job duties, such as, you know, there's undertaker bees, where when bees die in the hive, they will literally, and there's times that, you know, I'm sitting outside and I'm just watching entrances, you know, you can see them dragging out a dead one, and they just go fly off with it, you know, and, you know, because they don't want any of, you know, they won't want the dead ones in the hive. They want to keep it clean. It's just, you know, it's just amazing. You know, there's a certain phase, so to say, in their life cycle as well before they become a forager, where, and I don't have the days right off the top of my head. If I told you a specific day, I don't believe it's until about 8 days after they emerge, then they start producing wax. So, you know, they'll go through a certain phase where then they produce wax, and the wax actually comes off their, like, flakes that come out of their abdomen. And there's pictures online that show it. It's just, I never knew that, and when I saw that, I was just like, this is so cool. You know? Yeah. So everything that they do cycling through their life, and then when they become a forager, that's the last, so to say, phase of their life as a worker bee, because the colony, they basically think, well, if we send them out as a forager right away, well, if they die, you know, then they're not getting anything, so to say, in return. So they like to cycle them through all of those, and I apologize for the noise here. They like to cycle them through all of those job duties before they even leave the colony. You know, they leave the hive and become a forager. And they will basically then forage until they die. Wow. And they work until, and you'll see, you know, older forage bees, if you see pictures, you know, online, their wings are tattered, you know, they're kind of beat up looking, and it's because they work themselves to death. Yeah. You know. Wow. It just, yeah, it's amazing, you know, and, you know, beekeeping in general, what I always suggest people to do, you know, and with an educational type series, 1 hour is, it's the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. You know, and those that will look at beekeeping, yeah, and I see Broke Cowgirl said, you know, and they only live about 40 days. It's about 6 weeks, and that's it. You know, it's such a short lifespan in the summer. Now, the winter bees, they live longer. You know, in my area, I live in Northeast Ohio, so we have those long winters. The winter bees, just because they're somewhat of a different bee and they don't go out and forage as much. They live typically for a couple months. So they'll cycle through and get that colony through the winter time. And then once that queen starts laying eggs, and builds that population up in the spring, all the winter bees, they die off. But yeah, it's typically just about 6 weeks that little honeybee lives.
Wow.
So, yeah, but, for starters, if anyone is on here looking at becoming a beekeeper, the very first thing that I always suggest is find someone local. And I tell everybody also, I could tell everyone, watch my channel, but I tell everyone, really, don't watch much YouTube as far as what you need to do at this specific moment, because there's a phrase that, myself and there's the other two guys that we do the streams every week, and we always use a phrase in that context is key. And beekeeping, and just like gardening or any type of other like homestead type activity, it's very, like Broke Cowgirl says, join your local beekeeping club. Because what you get in your local beekeeping club is, folks around that area, they will know, well, according to this time of year, this is what you should be seeing. This is what's in bloom. There's phases throughout the year, and not all areas of the country, they have them, but there's what's called a dearth. And a dearth, loud cars.
That wasn't a bee?
A dearth is a time where, oh my gosh, let me go over here. I'm going to sit in my car.
Yeah, no worries, Brian.
Look at that. That is much better. So a
Make sure
dearth.
the window's open.
Right. Well, no, I know. You're funny. A dearth is a time where the nectar flow and, you're basically your resources that your foragers are going out to look for, where there isn't really that many. So you learn when you join your, no messing with the bees right now. We're in a drought. Yeah, they are pissy. And that is true. When, you join your local club, they'll be able to tell you, well, July is a hard month, August is a hard month, or, it just all depends. So beekeeping, like gardening, you learn, what is in bloom, what pops out in the spring, what pops, in the fall. And Beehive Homestead, what's up, Jarrett? How are you? You become very much in tune with that. So, there are some fundamentals, though, that by watching, YouTube and watching other beekeepers, you can learn fundamentals. You can learn certain skills, such as how to split colonies. I always try, and when I do my videos, if I see certain things on, even a frame, I will try and show that. That way people can somewhat see, well, here's what a drone looks like. Here's a queen. I show, how to mark a queen. Marking a queen is simply, they have little, they're marking pens, and you can put a little dot on the queen's back, and it just makes it easier to spot. And it's not something that, a beekeeper has to do. It's just sometimes, certain beekeepers like that. I do, just because I like to, when I look at my colonies, if I can spot the queen, I will sit there and stare at her for a minute or two, and I'm just like, that's a beautiful bug right there.
Yeah.
So I wonder, my I'm actually with a coworker, and she just walked out. Let me see if I go. I'm going to tell her to sit in the car.
Okay.
Hey, Jerry. Go ahead, sit down. I'll sit. There we go. Matt, how are you, buddy? But there we go. But yeah, like Broke Cowgirl said, join that local bee club. That way, and hands-on. It's just so key. I tell new beekeepers, join that club, and you'll learn also when you get that hands-on. As far as beekeeping, there are different styles of hives. The typical, like you see a lot of people have in the boxes are stacked up, those are Langstroth. It's Langstroth hives. They are either, typically you'll see 8 frame or there are 10 frame. You'll find some that are smaller. There's some that are 5 frame, but those are typically what's called a nucleus colony. You'll hear and people might say, "Oh, I bought a nuke," and well, you're not planning on bombing anybody. A nucleus colony, it's just a smaller hive, a smaller colony that typically those that sell nukes, it's already an established colony. So you have brood, so that is the young, you have all stages of brood. So you'll have eggs and larvae and pupa. So you have a queen that is already accepted by that colony, and it's just a smaller colony. So you can buy that 5 frame colony that already has some young bees in it, already has, some honey stores. They like to sell them also with stores in them. That way, it's basically just a small colony. And then when you get it home, you can, of course, grow it out, and you could move it into whatever equipment you want. But for the Langstroth, I think Langstroth is the most common, and you see that equipment everywhere. There are several companies out there that sell different versions of Langstroth. And by versions, I'll say, typically you see wooden, hives. There are those that sell the polystyrene for their insulation factor. So, those way down south, the one local bee shop that I go to, they say they're probably their top customers that buy the polystyrene are all down in Florida just because it helps with the heat.
Oh, wow.
Bees are, they're almost like little HVAC experts. They will, if you see pictures of, bees where they're, on these hot days, and we all have, there's a heat wave going across the country. It's funny, I look on Instagram and you see people saying, "Yep, the girls are letting me know it's hot."
Yep.
And you'll see bees where, if the population is very high, you'll see them all bearded out in the front of the hive. And people will say, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong? Are they leaving?" Well, no, it's just that, maybe they don't have anything to do at that time. So instead of being inside of that hive body, they will sit outside to regulate the temperature. And then you'll also see them where they have their backsides up with their wings going, and they're fanning so that they're controlling the airflow into the hive body.
And I only know some of this stuff from watching your channel. Because as you know, I watch your channel because I'm mesmerized by the way that you explain things. Because you do it in a manner that everybody can understand it. But I never considered getting bees until someone gave me a hive, and now I'm considering
Oh, wow.
But I've always been fascinated by your channel, and I've enjoyed watching it.
Yeah. And I try, part of my work, I do healthcare consulting, but I train others, some of the time at work. So my wife always tells me, even when I'm at home, she's like, you're talking to me like, I'm in one of your classes and you're teaching me. Just get to the point, So that's kind of helped out, in my YouTube journey, just because it's and as well as I do, when you're a content creator, it takes a certain just touch to be able to look at a camera and you are talking to nobody,
Right.
But you also want to, deliver that message in a way that, others can understand it. And that's what I want to do. I mean, the sole purpose of what I've done is originally I started so that I could show family and friends what I was doing with the bees.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first got them, my brother, he lives about an hour away. He was saying, it'd be cool to see it. And I said, well, I have a GoPro. I said, let me just film it. And my very first videos were just very raw, absolutely no editing. I would just set the, camera up and I would just hit record, and you'd see me walk around, and there's times where I would leave to go up to a shed and it would just be 2 or 3 minutes of just nothing. The camera's rolling, and it was rolling. And, I just shared that, I would just upload that 30-minute, raw video. And I learned, I'm like, well, I can probably try and cut some of that out. If somebody looks at this that isn't a friend or family, they're going to be like, what am I staring at? Like a beehive and there's nothing here. I mean, what's interesting about that? Now,
Right.
I would say it's interesting because I would watch the entrance. But,
right.
I started editing a little bit, and, I've been trying to do better. That way I can show others, hey, here's this and here's that. But I always say also, I'm not an expert. I know, as far as beekeeping, I know about that much. Beekeeping it's a hobby that, and if there's any in here that are beekeepers, they would tell you, it's a very humbling experience when you're a beekeeper, because you can walk out and you can have it in your head that, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And, Dan Bocros, what's up, buddy? That's DJ Barracuda. He is a good friend, Greg Burns, who does Nature's Image Farm. Dan does a podcast with him. And awesome. Dan also has, I don't even know how many beehives Dan has, but he's a commercial guy that he does his beekeeping for honey production. So, yeah, Dan's a good guy. So, beekeeping is very humbling in that, there's plenty of times where, I will say I'm going to do this and this and this, and I walk out, and those little bugs in a box, I see something, and it's like, well, darn it, now I have to do this. And it keeps you really in the moment. You have to, and I've learned this through my years, you have to be, on top of things, in that you need to be able to look at certain signs. And Matt and Sarah, Dan would tell you,
it's okay.
This is what you get for me traveling all over the country.
It's okay, Brian. We're just glad you're here. Thank you.
Yeah, but you have to be able to look in and make that assessment inspect that colony. And blue jacket apiary, I actually, this is one of those squirrel moments. Blue jacket apiary, Lisa, his name is Chuck Norris. Like the Chuck Norris.
Like the Chuck
so
Norris.
I worked with him in St. Louis, so what's up, Chuck? But, you have to look in there and, inspect what the colony is doing and react and adapt to that. And it keeps you very humbled, just because you would like to say, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, but that little bug, and however many thousands of them are in your colony, they're looking up at you and saying, no, we think you're going to do this.
Yep.
So they more or less dictate what you do. And you'll hear some beekeepers say, you want to become a beekeeper, not a bee haver. And you want to, and I've learned this. I've had some really humbling episodes in my beekeeping, journey, where you think you know everything of what's going on, and then you have a moment. Cluck Norris, he said, no, Chuck Norris. Come on, Chuck. You have a moment.
She has a friend with a chicken named Cluck Norris.
Oh, okay, I missed that one. You have a moment where, like I did at the beginning of 2021, where I lost all my colonies.
Yep.
And it's very humbling, because you think you're doing everything right. And you think you're taking care of your bees. You want them to live, as we all do. When we have any type of livestock or, bees, I think of them sometimes as livestock. You want to take care of them the best that you can. And, when in that moment when, I had a problem with varroa mites, and they wiped out my colonies. I did not treat them adequately. They wiped them out. And there was about 2 months, the beginning of last year, where I had no bees in my apiary. And that was a first, in a couple years. And it was that humbling moment where, I took it, though, as a learning. I need to take a step back. And when we have those moments in life, we need to learn from that and move on. And I did. I kind of, I did a lot of reading. I kind of restructured how I, keep my bees in my apiary. And I'll say because I just, I don't like to tell everybody, well, this is how you do it, because there's 50,000 different ways to keep bees. But, I kind of restructured how I keep my colonies. And coming into this year, I had 3 colonies. And in about beginning of the year, I went from 3 colonies to 11 in a 3 to 4 week period.
Yep.
I did some splits. Typically, your first year that you get bees, your main goal that you should set is, of course, learning fundamentals. You want to learn how to perform an inspection. What signs to look for. Let me mute this real quick.
Sure.
There we go. I think there we go. And, you want to, when you open up a hive and you're looking at that colony, you want to learn, well, what signs, what am I looking at? Is this colony healthy? And that's where having multiple colonies when you start, you can compare each of them. And now, if you bought packages of bees, and typically they come 3 pounds of bees, and then you get 1 queen. In 3 pounds, you'll have about 10,000 bees altogether. And, if you go the package route that I have, it's fine. If you buy those nucleus colonies that are already that established colony, that's fine as well. So it's really whichever direction you want to go. But having multiple colonies, you have that option to, well, I can compare A to B to C. And if you see one that is not really doing so hot, you could always pull a frame out of one colony and move it over. Maybe they just need a boost in population. So that's where you have that leeway. So if you are thinking on getting, bees, guess what, Lisa?
2.
You're going to get 2.
Well,
Yeah.
Sandy gave me that hive, and she's over there catching 5 swarms by putting her lemongrass oil out there. I put
Oh
Swarm
my gosh.
Commander twice, and I put lemongrass oil. I got nothing.
Yeah. What helps also, if you know a beekeeper that is around you, what you could do is get like an old brood frame.
Yeah.
Not anything that has, you don't want any honey, or you don't want to put out a frame that is just loaded up with honey and stuff, because you'll just lure in robbers and they'll rob it out. But if you have a really old brood frame, you could put that in there as well, just because other bees, they'll look at it too and say, well, I mean, they made it work here, so let's make it work here also. So there's little tricks. I'm really not, I'm not well versed on swarm catching, even though this year I caught a couple. It was pure dumb luck is all it was.
Right.
And I gladly accepted the dumb luck that, those trolls follow me everywhere.
Yeah, I'm taking care of it.
Everywhere they follow me. Ugh. Don't worry. But, with the swarms, it's just, it's hit or miss, It's like moving into a furnished house. That's exactly it.
Right.
If you have that, those old frames, it is just like they said, they fly in there and they will check the dimensions of that box that they see there, because they want to move into a house that's a certain size. You don't want to move into a shed that's 6 by 6. You walk in and you're like, oh no. This won't work. So they check the dimensions of that cavity, and also then if they have that older comb, then they're like, hey, it's furnished. We have a nice house here. It's big enough, and we even have furniture. So, that's what they really, with the swarms. There's, oh, Jared, thank you. You know me. I mean, I'm just I always say I'm the regular old guy. So I appreciate those comments, but I'm just, I'm the regular average Joe for beekeepers. So, but, what you could do too, Lisa, if you're looking for swarms, do you know of any bee clubs that are local in your area?
I don't. I had looked into a few, and then because I originally had thought of having a beekeeper put some hives here, so I didn't have to manage them.
Yeah.
I think I would rather that, but I said, we'll learn about it. My husband's always been interested in it.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you know a beekeeper, there's sometimes where beekeepers will give you a colony. And that's, one of the larger YouTube channels out there for beekeepers. It's 628 Dirt Rooster. Randy McCaffrey. He will do cutouts, and Beehive Homestead, Jarrett, he does cutouts as well. But Randy, one of the things that he'll do is if he does a cutout or he catches a swarm and he does not need them because he already has plenty of colonies, he'll just call up a buddy, who he knows has equipment and is looking for them. He'll just say, hey, do you have that box sitting out there? I'm on my way.
Awesome.
So, maybe let some people know that, hey, you're looking for a colony, because beekeepers, you'll see, like the beekeeping community that's here on YouTube, beekeepers in general want to help out others. It's just, I don't know what it is, but, it's, gosh, it's across the board that, beekeepers are really nice people.
They are really nice people. And, I think about that excellent resource you had in one of your last couple of videos. I think not the one from today or yesterday, but the one before, the Learning Center.
Oh, the Learning Yard.
The Learning Yard just was really cool to see.
Yeah, that's Greg. And he's one of the ones that I do the streams with. And Greg, he has set up, it's an amazing experience. What he has done is really anyone around his area there, and his customers, he basically set up packages at the same exact time that his customers did.
Wow.
And every other Saturday, he invites anybody over, and it's for free. Wow. You basically go there, and he'll talk for, half hour to an hour at first and just say, well, our colonies are this old, so this is what we should be seeing. And, he'll kind of prep everybody for, well, what we want to see. And then, we walk out, as you've seen, and he'll go through and, he gets the little kids involved, he gets the parents involved, and it's a learning experience, What I show in those videos at Greg's place is it's just the tip of the iceberg, because I'm typically there for 4 to 5 hours. Right. And I will put together a 10-minute video of just, 4 to 5 hours.
Right.
It's an amazing, day, and it's such a great thing for, someone at his level, he's a commercial beekeeper. But for him to say, well, come on over. I want to show everyone how to be a successful beekeeper. He'll always say down at his place too, I'm the worst beekeeper salesman that there is, because I want to sell you bees, and then I don't want to see you come back. I don't want to see you buy any more bees from me. I want your bees to live, And how many salesmen out there are like that? I want to sell you something, and then don't ever buy anything from me again.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. Yeah, but he's a great, Greg's a great friend. He's a, great guy. So.
That's awesome. It looked like a great experience. And like you said, you spend 4 or 5 hours. It sort of goes back to what we were talking at the beginning, which was, an hour live stream is nothing compared to all the things you need to know.
I know.
But let me ask you this. So the two things that stand out in my mind that might be confusing for somebody who wants to get bees is, number one, pros and cons, right? While making the decision. And the other thing is, of a basic hive, which is the Langstroth hive. That you talked about. Can you just talk about the components so people understand what they are?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So typically when you get a Langstroth, and again, this is just one type, you'll have a bottom board, and it's basically just that. It's a board that sets on, your stand. And your hive stand, it could be, a lot of commercial people will use pallets just because they'll put 4 hives on that pallet. Some people just get cinder blocks and they'll stack up some cinder blocks and then they'll put the bottom board on that. And then you'll take your, if you look at pictures online, you'll have a brood box, and they're typically, or somebody could say a deep. They're a larger box, and I wish I knew the dimensions off the top of my head. But they'll take that deep, and that goes on your bottom board. And it depends on the area. Some people will run 2 deeps. That's what I do as far as my brood management. I like to have 2 deeps. And then you'll have an inner cover, and it's not really even necessary. The inner cover, a lot of commercial beekeepers do not use them because they say it really serves no purpose, and all it does is give a place for beetles or other pests to hide out. Wow. So a lot of times they will put, some people will use, there's a type of bag, it's like a feed bag, and they will cut it. Deep measures 480 millimeters length, 230 deep, and 35 wide. Yeah, there you go. 9 5/8 deep. There you go, Chuck. Thank you. So they'll use a piece of cloth, or I know like Ian Stepler, who's the Canadian Beekeepers blog, he runs about 1,600 colonies. Ian has it's next time I talk to him, I'll have to ask, but it's some type of like a plastic sheet that he basically puts over the top of his colonies then, and then you have your outer cover. So really you only need, you have your bottom board, you have your brood boxes, your deeps, and some people might even use mediums just for the weight. If you're looking into the beekeeping, you have to know that eventually they're going to fill these boxes up with honey. And there's a weight factor. And when you're lifting up these boxes that could be 60 or 70 pounds, we don't, we're not, what was the movie, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button?
Yeah.
We don't age backwards.
Right.
We're always getting older, and Ian uses reflective bubble. Yep. So you have to consider at first, well, how much weight am I comfortable lifting? And that will dictate if you want to use medium boxes or if you want to use those deeps. And that will also dictate whether you want 8 frame colonies or 10. And if you ask, well, what's the difference from 8 and 10? It's 2 frames.
Right.
Now, those 2 frames, if they're completely filled with honey, you're adding 10 or 12 pounds every time you lift a box.
Right.
Plus the additional wood, it's not that much. I mean, a little couple more inches of wood. But, when you're in your 50s, in your 60s, and you have these bees, and you're lifting up boxes that are, 60, 70 pounds, it's not fun.
No, I mean, I haul 50-pound feed bags, and I will say the hive that I was given, when it doesn't have anything in it except for the frames, is quite hefty.
Yeah.
Quite hefty.
Yeah. But as far as components, that's really like the necessary components. You have your bottom board, you have your brood boxes, and then you should have some extra, for your honey supers. And the honey supers, typically they are, people like to run those as mediums. They're thinner, and that way they don't weigh as much. Because if you have a deep, that 9 and I forget the exact dimension that Chuck said, 9 5/8, I believe, the frames. If you have 8 frames that are completely filled out with honey,
Mm.
and they're 9 5/8 inches, I don't want to lift those boxes. So typically
Right.
you'll see deeps are used for the brood, and they can if a beekeeper doesn't plan well. Oh wait, I missed some of the comments. I wish I could read the comments that fast, but
I
I
know it's hard
apologize,
to.
everyone.
But somebody said the Beehive Homestead said, "Don't forget smoker and suit."
Yeah. But as far as hive the hive itself, that's about the basics. Now, sometimes you'll see people run entrance reducers just because in different times of the year, maybe in a dearth when you don't have all of those food, stores
Mhm.
available or those food sources available. If robbing is a big issue in your area, real strong colonies, they will go out and look for weak colonies. And if they see a colony is weak, well, it's like going to Kroger or Giant Eagle or Safeway or wherever. Hey, here's a grocery store. Um, you know, and they will go in and rob it out. So a lot of people will use that entrance reducer just to, narrow up that entrance at certain times of the year. In the winter time, I always like to, really narrow down. I squeeze down my entrance. That way, it's more or less for the temperature regulation. I don't want the whole front of my hive open. That way, we don't get those winds going in and cooling off the colonies. So, but
Absolutely.
that is the hive. Now, I see everybody who, they've brought up a smoker. Um, a smoker for a new beekeeper is just as important as the hive itself. Smokers serve a couple different purposes. You'll mask pheromones. You will get, bees where they'll think, oh, the house is on fire.
Hmm.
Let's go down and gorge on some honey. So they will dissipate from up top and go down. So a smoker serves it's a very key piece of equipment. The jacket, I'll talk about a jacket in a second, but the Hive Tool also, you would be surprised at how well those little bees, how they will glue things shut.
Yeah. I've
It
watched
is,
you peel things apart, and I'm watching you use something that I know it's not sharp, but it's thin metal enough to have leverage.
yep, yeah. So they and that that substance that they use to glue things shut, it's called propolis. So if
Hmm.
you ever hear of like Kaylee, who has the Honeystead, she has created an apothecary in the last year, and she sells propolis tincture. So,
Wow.
those herbalists out there, or, those that might be interested also in an apothecary, you can take that propolis and make a tincture. I never have. She tells me, she's like, you need to save that propolis, because it does have its benefits. But it's just amazing at the job that they will seal up that hive. They will also, if you have holes, such as entrances that are too large, you will see them use propolis and they will shut it up. They'll close it up to the entrance size that they want. So they're
Fascinating.
regulating the airflow, they're regulating that moisture, they're regulating the
Oh,
temperature.
excuse me.
So that said, it's almost like a cement. You do need that hive tool. Now, for hive
Yeah.
tools, um, there are several different kinds. You'll see a basic, flat hive tool. There's ones that have a hook on them. It's like a J hook.
Yep.
There's one that I have. It's like a multi-tool that has a little hammerhead on it. It has a hook. It has, a couple other grooves on it where you can clean out. If you use queen excluders, you can clean your queen excluders. And what a clean excluder is, it's basically a plastic piece or a metal piece that has certain sized grooves in it. And it basically keeps the queen confined below to the brood, so she can't get up into your honey boxes and lay eggs. Okay. So that hive tool you can use to clean those. There's so many different hive tools out there. I have, I think, one of each. I think the last I checked, I have about 9 hive tools. Like hives, if you're going to get into beekeeping, get 2 or 3 hive tools, because you will lose one. It's just a guarantee. So you have your hive tool, you have your smoker. As far as a suit, I tell every new beekeeper, don't do like I do, and there's times where you'll see me just wear that veil. Don't do like I do, because when, let's say you go out and you open up this really strong colony and you're really not overly comfortable with the honeybees yet, they react to movements. If you are super stressed and you're just not feeling right, bees are very sensitive to pheromones. Mm-hmm. So if we are really stressed, we're not giving off the right signal. So, if you get stung once, normally those that aren't beekeepers, if you feel a pinch, what do? Ouch.
Oh, yeah.
And, and those fast movements, they do not like that. There's times then where one will come up, maybe a guard bee, and they're just looking at you, and they might bump you, and they're not going to sting you. They're just letting you know, hey, we're not liking you so much here today. So, and like Chuck says, their hive tools are like 10 millimeter sockets. Yeah. You got to have a couple of them. Broke cowgirl, the magnet in your pocket. Yeah, I wished that I had one. I probably should do that, but I have I think it's a Carhartt bag that I keep my hive tools, my queen catcher in it, my marking pens. I keep my brush in there. I don't use the brush that much because the bees tend to not like the brush if you brush them off a frame. So I keep all my tools in the bag, but the jacket, get a full jacket right away and learn how to be comfortable with them. Get a set of gloves also. You'll see me at times where I'll use like the nitro gloves. They're those bluish like medical gloves. That's just because I'm comfortable. I could get stung through them, but I want to be able to feel certain things during the inspection. Now this year I've transitioned a lot to wearing like beekeeper gloves that they're from Guardian Bee Apparel. So I'm throwing out a plug for Terry at Guardian Bee Apparel. He has vented gloves, so they work really well. Nice. But become comfortable with them, and then once you go through, say, a season, and you're wearing your jacket and you're learning how to act around the bees, around your colony, then, Chuck says a ventilated jacket is a must. Then you could maybe get that veil, or maybe you just want to take your gloves off and work, without gloves at first. So, but comfort is very much so key. I tell those, you'll see a lot of beekeepers on YouTube where they wear nothing. Don't go out and do that right away, because it could be very intimidating when you open up a colony and you have 2, 3, 4, 500 bees come up into the air. And it, you know, I've had my moments where they've gotten me pretty good. And, you know, I've been stung. Somebody put their light on, and I love the light because you guys can see me now. I've been stung, I think, 13 times in one time before. Opened up a small colony, and it was pretty mean, and 13 times this colony got me.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I didn't have anything on. I was going down to open up a colony 37 times at once. Jarrett got it. You know, so be comfortable around the bees before you try and do anything, you know, as far as removing protective equipment, because protective equipment it's very key.
I agree. So I wanted to be mindful of the time. I don't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to be mindful of the time. It's about 56 minutes. Did you have anything else you wanted to share?
Yeah.
Or?
Gosh, I could talk forever.
I know you also have things to do.
We need to plan another one.
Sure. I would love to. Do you want to open it up for Q&A then?
Sure. Yeah.
So if anybody has questions for Brian, you know, please type it in the chat. But Brian, I think you brought up some really good points about having your own comfort level. And the safety equipment is there for a reason, because the bees actually sense all of that and they know what's going on and they're going to react to it. Yeah.
You know, there have been, well, I'll wait for some questions, but there have been days where I have walked out to check my colonies and I just don't feel right. You know, I get into the very first colony and they're acting a little bit, you know, like, hey, buddy, you're not the normal self that you are. Wow. And they're a little bit on the defensive side. And then I'm just feel, you know, I'm sure, you know, you have those days where you just, you're not feeling yourself. And I will close everything up and I don't go any further and I'll go back another day.
Good point.
So, you know, they you know, very much so react to, you know, how you feel, you know. So anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I'm just looking in the chat, waiting to see. Jesse was kind enough to put in some stuff.
Yeah, said, thank you, Jesse.
What is the most satisfying part of beekeeping?
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Do we have another hour?
Sure. You're going to be sitting there, though.
I know. For me, I'll keep it short. There's something about those bugs in a box that I can sit there, you know, on days where I'm having a bad day. I have a bad day at work. And now my bees they're about 20, 25 minutes from where I live. They're at my mom's place. I will drive over there and set aside from, you know, the jacket and the smoker and the hive tool, the most important thing that you can buy if you get bees is a chair. Because I will go over and there's times where I can sit and you just watch them. And it's that satisfaction of looking down at these colonies that you have put blood and sweat into managing, and you just watch them grow and you watch them produce that honey crop, where this year, you know, was the first year that, I had multiple 5-gallon buckets of honey that I harvested. And after I was all done, it's just like, wow, you know, I was part of this, you know. It just, I could go on and on about, you know, what's the most satisfying part, but it's just those moments like that where, you know, It's just beekeeping is awesome.
That's so cool. What about pros and cons that you haven't covered? Like, obviously, pros is sitting there and knowing that you're a part of it,
Yeah.
and then there's maybe cons, they may swarm, but just maybe some things you didn't mention.
Yeah. Cons, um, a con, gosh, those days where you really get stung, when you have those bad days, um, that's definitely that con. I will say also the money end of it, beekeeping is not cheap. Look at that view there.
It is
Wow.
pretty.
Sheesh, I know. I know.
Your coworker's
So,
enjoying it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But, I don't know. I mean, a con, other than when you get stung up like that, I don't know. Working them in the heat, I guess sometimes that pretty much stinks, you know. But I don't know. I'll have to think of some. And the
Awesome.
next one.
That
So
sounds
the
perfect.
next one. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to thank you very much for coming on, because you were the first person I thought of with this series because of
Yeah.
your straightforward manner of talking about things and just making things so understandable for everybody. We do have one more question, if that's okay.
Sure.
What is the biggest mistake new beekeepers make?
Oh, wow. Uh, Opening up the hive too often.
Good one.
You want to get in there and you want to look at them and you want to look at them and you want to see what your bees are doing, but just let them be bees. There's times where us as beekeepers, we actually hinder what they will do. Okay. So, that's the one thing I can say as a brand new beekeeper, just kind of step back and, let the bees be bees. I see Chuck says, how long should it take a new beekeeper be able to get some honey? I typically will say do not harvest in the first year. That way your colony will get built up, and harvest the second year. I've had some first year colonies where I've had a decent, amount of honey, and I've harvested, but it's very rare. So Chuck, I usually say the second year.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
again, thank you so much, Brian, for coming. And I know
yeah.
you've been really busy, but you share your passion, and I really appreciate
Yeah.
it. And I think everybody in the chat was just sitting back and enjoying listening to the show and learning some new stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Let's set up another one. I'll email and we'll set up another one.
That sounds perfect. I'd be happy to do that.
And I'll be on my computer and I'll have my light and I'll have my microphone, and we won't have to worry about cars.
Don't worry about a thing. I'm just glad you were here for episode 1. And when you get back, and because I got to get through the piglet thing. So
right.
And then we will move forward and definitely have you back.
Awesome. That sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you everybody
very Lisa.
much. Have a good evening.
You take care. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.